What's happening, Boot Junkies? Mike Delgadio here, back with another video on home studio setup for voiceover. It is so good to see you guys again. I've got two microphones in the booth today, and we're going to do a side-by-side comparison of them. These are two that I have been particularly interested in. I hear a lot about these microphones, and these are new ones for me. I haven't really had a chance to test them before. This one will look familiar. It's an Electro Voice RE320. I've reviewed two of its siblings before. I've reviewed the RE20 and the RE27ND microphone. This one has that same form factor. This is the RE320. And over here we have the Heil PR40. These are both dynamic microphones, meaning they don't require phantom power. These are both cardioid microphones, which means they are sensitive from the front and much less sensitive from the back. These are both end address microphones. As you can see, I'm talking into the top of them. They look like they should be addressable from the side. And to a certain extent they are because of the cardioid pattern. But really, these are end address microphones. If you see somebody using this microphone either upright or hanging down, talking into the side screen, that's a mistake. These are end address microphones. Now, we're just going to go back and forth, side by side, see how they sound, see if you detect any differences from them, and we'll go over some of the features that each has. Specification-wise, these are two very similar microphones. They both have very similar frequency response curves. This one is like 30 to 18,000 hertz. This one, selling point, says it's the lowest of them all. This one goes to 28 hertz. Now, if you're miking a bass cabinet or a bass drum, maybe those extra 2 hertz down is important. For us, we're probably going to roll that stuff off anyway. Not so much important for voiceover. It's good to get extra information. 2 hertz, maybe it's not going to have that big a deal. Selling point feels like marketing more than anything. But consider, they both have similar frequency response curves. What's the lowest sound they're sensitive to? What's the highest sound they're sensitive to? 28 to 30 to about 18,000. So they don't capture the super, super high frequency up at the 20,000 kilohertz. 20,000 hertz. I always do that. 20,000 hertz. Way up at the very edge of human hearing. Now, somebody might say, well, you're missing some of those ultra high harmonics, man, and it's going to take away some of the air. That may absolutely be true. I will say, if your final version is going to be MP3, that's not going to matter. That's not going to matter. Why? Because MP3 throws all that stuff out when you're way up there. When you're at a 128 your typical MP3, they throw away a lot of that super high frequency stuff. Most people can't hear it. Most earbuds can't reproduce it. At least the stock earbuds can't reproduce it that well. And so they throw it away. That's how they can compress some of that stuff away, by throwing away some of the stuff that's practically, for all intents and purposes, inaudible. Anyway, didn't mean to get off on a tangent about MP3 compression, but suffice to say that both of these microphones do have a frequency response that will be perfectly acceptable for something like a podcast. If you're going to be rendering to MP3, if you're going to be rendering to YouTube, either one of these microphones is going to be perfectly fine. Now, the Heil has no switches to it. Just straight up cardioid. There's no switches, buttons. There's nothing to it. Interestingly, the RE320 does have a switch on it. And it's essentially a different EQ curve. Now, in many microphones that we've tested, you often get like a bass roll-off switch, and that's to get rid of rumble and some of that low end. This one, interestingly, it's not a bass roll-off switch. There's essentially like a bass notch. So there will be, and it says it's for like placing it up to a bass cabinet or in front of a kick drum. Both of these microphones say they're great for kick drums. If you're a drummer, kick drum mic. But this one essentially has a notch cut out in your mid-bass region. Let's see. I got the spec sheet down here. Does it say where it is? Yeah, it's in like the 250, right where I would normally demud my voice. You've maybe seen in one of my other EQ videos where I EQ out a little tiny dip in like the 250, 300 hertz range to take away some of the mud in my voice and add some additional clarity. This one has a notch that's interestingly built right in at that frequency, essentially to demud the microphone. If you found that mud in this microphone or any other microphone, you would normally EQ that dip out. This one seems to have it here. I'm going to switch over to that on the RE320. And we'll see if it has any effect. It may add some additional clarity to my voice, may not have much effect. We'll just let you guys hear it. And then we'll switch back to how it sounds without it. I'm going to keep it flat just so that we're on parity with each one of these. Both of these microphones, they do seem to resonate really well with people for voice. And I think that's because they do have sort of a hyped top end. They are nice, crisp, clear microphones. Other microphones that I've compared this to, and I'm so sorry I traded somebody this microphone for my SM7B. So there's another channel out there, ePostvox, that's going to do a review, I think, of my SM7B. We traded. Hey, super cool. And this one, another booth junkie, Luis, sent this to me. Thank you very much, both of you, for letting me to test your amazing, amazing microphones. Where was I going with that? Oh, so they do seem to resonate really well for voice because they do have that escalated top end. Something like a 7B I do find to be warmer than both of these microphones. So by warmer, they're going to have less top end to it. It won't be quite so bright, which can be flattering to certain voices. I think it can be flattering to voices that have an aggressive sound. So if you have an S that's really bright and sounds like a needle in your ears, that noise, you hear some voices. Man, once you start to hear that noise, you listen to NPR where they don't do that sort of de-essing and stuff like that. That sound, sometimes you hear it on the Daily podcast. Oh, that.
A young female employee sent a pretty searing memo to a top executive spelling out just allegation after allegation of sexual harassment and other misconduct by Harvey Weinstein.
Just take that out. So warmer microphones will be less likely to exhibit that. These two microphones, because their frequency response graph does have, they're really escalated up above, what is it, about 5,000, a little bit about 5,000 on that one, on the Heil, and yeah, about 5,000 on both of them. They both have a hyped up top end. Gives it clarity, gives it air. On some microphones, if it's done without good high quality circuitry inside, it can sound really tinny and gross and aggressive. These are both seem to be very smooth microphones. So even though it does have a lot of high-end clarity, it's not aggressive. It doesn't stick like a needle in your ear. At least not so much that I hear it anyway. Maybe you guys will disagree with me on that. But I also don't, my particular voice, I don't think I have a real sharp sound in my S. It's just the way my voice is. It's not a good or a bad thing. It's just the way my voice is. If you do have that sharp sound, you can take that away with EQ, as we've talked about. I do find that gain-wise, both of these microphones can gain from something like a FET head or a cloud lifter. Both of these are gain boosters, gain exciters, gain amplifiers. These both take phantom power, block it to the microphone, because neither one of these microphones require phantom power, but these will give you additional gain, make them louder. Neither of these is running with either of these right now. My preamplifier generally does pretty good, but I do have to turn it almost all the way up. I do find that I have to turn it up higher. Oh, now I'm confused. Let me check. Yeah, that's what I thought. So I do find that the Heil, I do have to have the gain set up a little bit higher. So these should sound very well matched, but there's actually more gain on my preamplifier. Just a little bit, a few dB. I do have to apply a bit more gain as compared to the RE320. Both of them, my gain knob is almost all the way up. I could boost it up more, but then I think I'd start to get a little bit of preamp noise. My preamps are pretty quiet in my Audient. They're really quiet even when they're all the way up. But I don't like to run it all the way super maxed. So I have them about 96% of the way up, about 94% of the way up. So this requires just a little bit less. Maybe that's got something to do with the impedance of the microphone. I'm not sure. I just go by the gain knob. But I do find that if you have a preamplifier that is not known for being one that supplies a ton of gain, get yourself a cloud lifter, get yourself a fed head, one or the other, and you should be fine. The reason that I think that they work well for podcasters is because these are side address microphones. So you see, I can look out over these. It's not necessarily in my way. But they do both claim to have very good off-axis rejection. So if you're in a podcast situation where you're facing somebody, you're across the table, you're having a conversation, one, you can make eye contact. These claim to not require pop filters. They've got pop filters built into the end of them. But also, if you're facing each other and you have the butts of the microphone facing each other, you're going to be rejecting the other voice. So the person who's facing you, when they're talking, your microphone is going to reject it. The only time this microphone is going to pick up the person on the other side is if there's a reflection off this wall and into the microphone. Same thing for the other end. It's that bounce. That's where you get that bleed. This one, both of these claim to be very insensitive from the back. Now, can I spin it around? So this is the Heil from the back. So this is what another voice on the other side of the podcast would sound. So we'll put the Heil back. And now this is the rearward rejection from the RE320. So I'm talking into the wrong end of the RE320. And we'll see. Does it reject most or all of the sound? It should. That's what their claim to fame is. And that's sort of the side effect of the cardioid pattern. That's its whole point. Is it's sensitive from one side, very insensitive from the other. They both, let's see, the last thing I think bears mentioning is the proximity effect. And actually, I haven't tested this one. The Electro Voice, their claim to fame is they don't have proximity effect. All of these slots on the side is their part of their variable D technology. It's got some stuff inside. I think there's some chambers or some grooves or something, plus these sides, so that as you get close to it, you should be able to get right up to the RE320 and get right off of it. And the tonality of your voice, the EQing of your voice, it should not get more bass heavy as you get closer to it. It should just get louder. Now, the Heil, as we get closer to it, it should maybe get a little bassier as you get closer to it. I'm not sure. I honestly haven't done that test before. So as we get closer to the Heil, does it sound any different? Now, in my headphones, I'll say it doesn't sound like it's getting particularly bassy in each one of them. I will say that it's curious that the RE320's frequency response graph does show that at is that what that says? At 1 centimeter? Yeah. Now this says it should exhibit some. Interestingly, the RE320 does say it will exhibit some increased bass. If I understand this frequency response graph, it says it will actually get almost a 10 dB boost in the bass area as you get close to it, 1 centimeter off of it, which I'm about 1 centimeter off it right now. So it says it should get bassier, but I thought that was the whole point of variable D, is that it doesn't. We'll see. We'll see how it sounds for you guys. Now, price-wise, there's a fairly significant difference between them. This one is priced much more in the much more against the SM7B, $400 for this one, and the RE320, which I gotta say, a $260. $260 is what I'm looking at right now on Amazon. I've got the prices right down in front of me. $399, $260. I mean, $150, $140 more for this one? You be the judge. To me, they sound really close. They're both extremely well-made microphones. They're both made out of metal. They both seem to be really durable. The Heil came with a shock mount. I believe the RE320 does not. I think it's a separate one. It's got that crazy big, the great big Electro Voice basket shock mount that hangs. It's a great big monsters thing. The Heil's is much more of your straightforward standard elastic shock mount that you see on many other condenser mics, except it's made for facing this way instead of up and down like a condenser would be, or a large diaphragmatic condenser. But you're making a choice. You got to buy two microphones. You're going to save a whole bunch of money with the RE320, but you might prefer the way the Heil PR40 sounds. I do think that they sound a little bit different in my evaluations of it. This microphone seems to have a little bit less high-end response. This one seems to be, the Heil seems to be a bit clearer for me up in the high end of the voice. But it's going to be a function of what you think sounds better for you. Especially if you have that sound, you might want the RE320 because it's going to diminish that a little tiny bit. Two different microphones. Same situation that you might use them in, podcasting. You could definitely use them for audiobooks. You could definitely use them for voiceover. You could use them for gaming if you want to have that microphone right up front in front of you and point the back of the microphone towards like your speakers if you want to have speakers. But this thing's got to be right up on your face. You're going to have it like right up on you to reject that stuff from behind you and diminish any reflections off your back. What else is there to say? Two real similar mics. Two real similar situations. So go pick one. Go pick a condenser. Go pick a cardioid. Go pick a dynamic. Pick a microphone. Get in a booth. Make a booth if you have to. Get out there and record something amazing. Thanks. We'll talk to you next time.